If you've ever held a perfect bloom, maybe the last rose of summer, or I don't know, a corsage from a really important evening, you get that feeling, that little bit of heartbreak.
Oh, absolutely. That knowledge that this beautiful, vivid thing is going to be gone in like a day.
Exactly. And we all want that memory to last. So we turn to flower pressing, which is this, ancient method of making something fleeting feel a bit more permanent.
For sure. But there's a huge difference between, say, sticking a daisy in a dictionary for a scrapbook and achieving true, like, archival preservation. We're moving way beyond just a simple craft project today.
That is our mission. We have gone deep into professional guides, conservation articles, all the horticultural studies on how to select, press, and store these things.
We really did.
And what we want to do is give you the blueprint for consistent professional grade results.
Mm.
It seems to hinge on mastering three pillars, really.
Right. It's all about immediate moisture extraction, maintaining really consistent pressure, and using acid-free materials.
And if you fail at any one of those, your art just, well, it succumbs to time. We're hoping to give you the shortcut past all the common mistakes, the mold, the browning, that awful papery texture,
Yeah.
and get you straight to the techniques that lock down those colors and structures for, well, for decades.
Let's go.
Okay, so let's unpack this and start at the very, very beginning.
Yep.
The specimen itself. If we're aiming for archival quality, what really defines a press-friendly flower?
Well, the science here is actually pretty fascinating because it all comes down to controlling water and chemistry. Success really relies on two things: low structural moisture and pigments that can resist pH changes.
So you're in a race against time, basically.
You are. You're trying to pull that internal moisture out fast enough before the plant's own enzymes, which need water to work, start causing what we call oxidative browning.
So moisture is the enemy.
Yeah.
And a thick flower is it's just inherently waterlogged.
Precisely. That's why the easiest category, your guaranteed wins, are going to be flat, low-moisture flowers like pansies, violets, cosmos.
Pansies, really.
Oh, pansies are almost nature's perfect pressing subject. Their petals are incredibly thin, and the little highways for water inside them, the vascular bundles, are spread way out,
So the water can escape really fast.
near instantaneously,
Uh-huh.
into the blotting paper. And that rapid drying is what locks the color in place before it even has a chance to degrade.
That structural insight is so key. But what about the ones we all really want to preserve? The thick roses, the big zinnias, the peonies.
Right, so those are a challenge because they're built like tiny, dense sponges. A moderately thick bloom, like a zinnia or a daisy, is going to need some structural surgery.
Surgery.
Yeah, you have to remove the central cone or
Yeah.
physically split the thick base. You're basically turning a 3D object into a few flatter 2D pieces. If you don't do that, the trapped moisture just steams the petals around it.
And you get those dark, ugly splotches.
Or worse, you get mold really fast.
And what about the absolute hardest, like a really tight rosebud or a fleshy tropical flower?
I would say they are basically out of bounds for traditional flat pressing. The sheer density of moisture and cells means they will just take way too long to dry under pressure. They are, guaranteed to rot or cook.
So you need a different method entirely.
Exactly. You need something that tackles the water chemically, not physically. We'll get to that.
Okay, so since moisture is enemy number one, we have to talk about timing. I imagine harvesting at the wrong time of day could undo everything.
Oh, it's critical. For reducing mold and getting the best color, you have to harvest late morning, specifically after the dew has dried off. But before the afternoon, heat starts to make the plant wilt.
Why then?
Botanically, the plant is less turgid at that point. Its internal water pressure is at its lowest. You want to pick blooms that are fully open, but still look really taut and vibrant.
Okay, so we've got our perfect dry specimen. Let's move into preparation, the steps right before it goes in the press. What are those sort of pre-press steps that ensure you get that even drying?
Prep is all about minimizing variables. First, trim the stems really tight to the flower head and get rid of any excess leaves. All that extra green stuff just adds moisture and drying time.
Makes sense.
Second, and this is non-negotiable for archival work, use tweezers.
Not your fingers.
Never your fingers. You transfer oils and acids that can cause permanent darkening. Plus, tweezers let you gently flatten out little curves or wrinkles in a way your fingers just can't.
And after we've done any of that surgery, like splitting a zinnia, what about any surface moisture?
You always glot.
Yeah.
Always. Even with a perfect harvest, there might be some residual moisture. So you gently blot the petals on a really absorbent, non-textured paper. and never let them touch each other in the press.
Why not?
It creates a little bridge for moisture to travel between them, which can create a localized mold spot.
Ah, okay. Now let's get to the physics of this. So many DIY methods fail because of inconsistent pressure, right? We need it to be steady and substantial.
Right, and the goal isn't just weight. It's uniform, consistent pressure across the entire surface. Too low, the flower wrinkles and dries slowly, so it browns.
And too high.
You crush the cell structure, and then the pigments just bleed out onto your paper, and that's irreversible. A professional press is often getting like 50 to 70 pounds per square inch of consistent force.
Wow. Okay, so with that in mind, let's compare the methods. We have to start with the slowest, but maybe the most archival one, book pressing.
It's accessible, it's inexpensive, but it demands a ton of patience. You layer your flowers between blotting paper and acid-free cardboard, and you stack really heavy books on top. Textbooks, encyclopedias.
And it takes forever.
6 to 8 weeks. And here's the big professional secret. You have to replace the paper.
How often?
You have to open it all up and replace the damp blotting paper with fresh, dry paper after the first 24 hours. And then again every 48 hours for the first week.
Wait a second. If I'm using this massive stack of heavy books, isn't unstacking that whole thing every 2 days going to completely mess up the consistent pressure you were just talking about?
That is the primary challenge of book pressing. It's exactly why wooden presses are superior. With books, you have to be so meticulous trying to put the weight back exactly as it was.
But you have to do it.
You have to. That early paper replacement physically removes the bulk of the water. If you leave that supersaturated paper in there, you've just created a perfect, humid little incubator for mold.
That is a very powerful argument for a proper wooden flower press. What does that consistency buy you?
A wooden press uses screws and bolts, so you can apply measurable, reproducible pressure evenly across the whole stack. You can tighten the bolts sequentially the same way every single time you close it up.
That's more reliable.
Much more. Still takes 6 or 7 weeks, but you get fewer wrinkles, less risk of crushing, and you can process bigger batches much faster. It's the highest quality DIY method for archival results, for sure.
Okay, now for the impatient people. Speed options. Microwave and iron pressing, we know they're fast, but what's the exact reason they're considered non-archival? What's the failure point?
It's the heat. They introduce high heat while applying pressure.
Yeah.
When you microwave a flower, you're literally boiling the water inside its cells.
So it's steaming from the inside out.
Exactly. And that rapid heating breaks down cell walls and totally alters the chemical structure of the pigments. That's why you get that darkening, that scorching, that permanent brownish hue. It might be dry in 2 minutes, but the quality is shot.
So if color fidelity is your #1 goal, heat pressing is out. But what about those thick, waterlogged flowers we talked about, the roses and peonies? How do professionals handle those?
That's where silica gel comes in. Silica gel drying is a purely chemical process.
Right, those little packets you find in shoe boxes.
Exactly, but in bulk. You bury the flower completely in these little crystals inside an airtight container.
Yeah.
The gel then chemically pulls the moisture out of the plant over, say, 4 to 9 days.
So it's solving the water problem chemically, without any physical flattening. What's the huge benefit there?
It perfectly preserves the three-dimensional structure. You get a fully dried, realistic-looking flower that keeps its original shape. It's perfect for a shadow box display.
What's the trade-off?
Well, you need the specialized material, and honestly, cleaning all the tiny silica particles out of the petals can be a bit tedious.
Okay, so let's say we've done it. We've successfully pressed the flowers. They're brittle, they're crisp. Now for the final hurdle, making sure they last for decades. It has to start with what they touch, right?
Absolutely. If the flower is the temporary star, the archival materials are the permanent stage. Paper choice is paramount. You must use true acid-free or conservation-grade paper.
Something with a neutral pH.
Exactly, a pH of 7.0 or a little higher. If you use regular craft paper, or, God forbid, newspaper, those acids will slowly leach into the flower's structure over time and cause this irreversible yellowing and decay.
And for mounting them for display, what's the right adhesive?
You need a stable, pH-neutral adhesive. The gold standard is archival PVA glue. PVA stands for polyvinyl acetate.
Okay.
The crucial thing is that it's water-based and chemically stable. Avoid anything solvent-based like rubber cement or superglues. Those solvents will react with the fragile pigments and cause them to bleed or darken.
And I think I know the answer to this, but what about lamination?
Never, never, ever laminate pressed flowers. Lamination is high heat plus non-archival acidic plastic adhesives. It will destroy your specimen very quickly.
Okay, so big picture, preventing failure long term is about controlling the two biggest enemies, moisture and light. Let's start with moisture. How do we know for sure that a flower is dry enough to mount?
You have to test it. Gently flex a petal with your tweezers. If it's supple or soft or even a little tacky, it still has too much moisture inside.
It should be brittle.
It should be brittle and crisp, like very thin parchment. If you suspect it's still pliable, you have to immediately repress it with fresh paper or even give it a quick treatment in silica gel to pull out that last little bit of moisture.
And what if we open a storage box and find a little patch of mold?
Mold means the local humidity was too high. You have to isolate that piece immediately. If the mold is just on the surface, you can try re-drying it thoroughly. But honestly, if it's penetrated the structure and caused discoloration, it's better to just discard it to protect the rest of your collection.
Okay, so enemy number two, fading. The slow, inevitable loss of color. How do we protect them from light?
Fading is caused by ultraviolet light breaking down the pigment's molecular bonds. So you have to store finished pieces in a cool, dark, low humidity place. And if you're going to display it, you must use UV filtering glass or acrylic.
It's like sunscreen for your art.
That's a perfect analogy. It physically blocks the harmful UV wavelengths from ever reaching the pigments, which dramatically extends their life.
You also found a great tip in the sources about something called provenance.
Yes, provenance is just the record of an item's origin. So store your flowers flat in acid-free envelopes or boxes, toss in a small silica packet to keep the humidity low, and crucially label the container with the species name and the date you harvested it. It adds real historical and scientific value.
That's amazing advice for the serious DIY artist. But let's shift gears now to the really high-stakes projects, like a wedding bouquet. For something like that, people often go to a professional. What are they doing that justifies that big investment?
Professional preservation is this highly structured 8 to 12-week conservation process. The investment is justified by their specialized equipment and superior materials. They're often using industrial-grade presses, even vacuum presses, which can pull moisture out way faster than any home press ever could.
They're aiming for zero margin of error.
Exactly.
I have to imagine the timeline is critical for getting those flowers to the studio after a big event.
Oh, the timing is incredibly tight. The flowers have to get to the studio within 3 to 5 days. But for the absolute best results, they really want them within 24 to 48 hours.
Wow, that's a major logistical thing to plan for right after a wedding. How do they handle that transport?
If you're local, they often have a specialized courier pickup,
Yeah.
maybe for around $50. But for nationwide clients, you have to use overnight or 1 to 2 day shipping.
And I bet they give you very specific instructions.
Incredibly detailed step-by-step packing instructions, usually involving like damp paper towels around the stems and careful bracing inside the box to keep the blooms hydrated and safe on that journey.
Okay, so once the flowers are processed, what's the one service that really separates a professional framing job from a DIY one?
Besides the superior pressing itself, they often offer color correction. This is vital for deep reds and purples, which are chemically prone to darkening. But I think the most valuable step is the digital mock-up approval.
What's that?
Before they commit everything to the final frame, you get a digital layout, so you can confirm the arrangement of the flowers, any little keepsakes you added, like an invitation, and the whole presentation. You see it before it's sealed forever.
That's a huge deal. And since these are permanent sentimental pieces using museum-grade materials, I'm guessing the prices reflect that.
They absolutely do. The prices reflect that 8 to 12-week process, the specialized labor, the guaranteed result, and the cost of all those conservation materials.
So what's the range we're talking about?
A smaller, simpler frame, maybe an 8x10, might start around $200. But a large, detailed shadow box, say a 20x24, that needs a lot of custom work, could be upwards of $600, $630. You're really buying peace of mind and true longevity.
That brings us to the close of this deep dive. A quick summary then. Whether you're using a humble book press for 8 weeks or silica gel for 4 days, it all comes down to getting the moisture out fast, using uniform pressure, and keeping everything acid-free.
Right. You need the right tools, the right glues, and a real commitment to the timeline. We've covered everything from the chemistry of the pigments to the specific logistics of shipping a wedding bouquet. The goal is always the same. Turn something transient into a stable, archival piece of art.
And that transformation, especially for something as fragile as a memory, requires a huge investment of time, of special materials, careful documentation, and yeah, sometimes a lot of money.
Which brings up an interesting question for you to think about. When we take something so fragile and temporary and we apply all this meticulous effort and all these resources to make it permanent, does the time and care that we invest ultimately transform the emotional value of that pressed flower? Does it become something more than its original ephemeral beauty?
Are we moving from just a fleeting moment to a documented legacy?
Exactly. Something to consider as you plan your next deep dive.